How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of AngelsBobs Plus here in Factorio. Hope you guys have been enjoying the series so far. If you guys have, make sure you guys leave a like, comment, and subscribe on the episode, as it really does help out. Other than that, it's episode 82 or 83. It's one of those two. I'm not sure which number, but it's a number. I'm gonna find the number. It's 83. There we go. Episode 83. Awesome. Okay. So in the last episode, we went ahead and kind of outlined the beginning production here of turning our stone and slag into usable products instead of just stone and slag. So down here we're melting each component. We're melting down slag and we're melting down the crushed stone, both of which turn into the slag slurry, which exists here. And of course we can go ahead and add some additional storage to that, just that way the solids can turn into liquids and we can store the liquids much easier. So now the next component we need to do is filter it. So we're going to mix the slag slurry with water and then filter it through a coal filter. Well, if you remember, in order to make coal filters, filter frames are needed, and then we just need some coal to resupply. We could make ceramic filters and go that route. However, they need to be resupplied with alumina, which does give us a little bit of a problem. Luckily, okay, well, the ceramic filters are a one and done, and then once you make them with the alumina, then you just clean them with purified water. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and use coal and do the coal recipe. If you don't have coal, then by all means go do the aluminum. But if you don't have or don't want to, like in my case, I just don't want to do it, use coal. There's also useful recipes up here for the ferrous slurry, and that's another part to do some things, which we'll maybe look at some point. I don't know. I didn't use it in a few of the playthroughs I've done. Yeah, some of these I don't actually remember using. I do remember using this one, though. So to make the filter frames, we don't need to continuously make more. So similar to the catalyst, the metal catalyst we made for the green metal catalyst and the red metal catalyst, the catalyst frame itself does not get destroyed in the recipe, so the filter frames also don't get destroyed. So if we make one frame, it is a 1-to-1 versus the catalyst, which is a 1-to-10. So if we make one, it actually produces 10. So in this case, it is a 1-to-1. So for now, I'll just produce all the ones I have in my inventory. And then the next component is just filter frames and coal. And so then it's honestly, it's nothing expensive. And so we could just do something as simple as this. Actually, yeah, okay, we'll do this. Alright. So that goes like that. And that goes like that. Awesome. Alright, so let's just go ahead and do something like this. Something like that, something like this. And then like that. Like that. Cool. And for simplicity's sake, well, I say simplicity, but it's not really quite that simplistic. Do some underground here. If I had red underground, I would use it, but I don't. And then we'll go like that. Where's a splitter in here? Alright, so coal will basically come in, filter frames will get cycled, The mineral sludge will get stored, and then the sulfuric wastewater will just get deleted for now. Eventually we might decide to hook it up and process it here. But for our case, I'm not going to be too worried about it. Alright, let's go ahead and pick up the ruins with that right there. Awesome. Alright. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and get rid of that. Alright, so now the next step in getting direct ore sort of copper is now we need to make mineral catalyst. Well, luckily for us, all we have to do is we don't have to do any weird combining. All we have to do is put it inside what is known as a crystallizer. Now, you don't need a whole lot of these. Now, obviously, once you are doing all of the different ores with direct ore sorting, and you have some conditions on it, well, your factory is going to be going through a lot more of this, and so, of course, we'll scale it as we need to, but for now, this is not a... The reason that I have the other two components, or the other two stages, if you will, scaled as much as they are, it's to mainly deal with the solid, right? So I want to turn it into the slag slurry, and then I want to further refine it into mineral sludge, right? Because think of it like this. So the slag slurry is this unconcentrated stuff that we water down further, and then we boil, effectively we filter it and boil it all down, and then we get this mineral sludge, right? Which is a very condensed version. As you can see, although yes, we did just start getting mineral sludge, it doesn't produce it nearly as much. So although it is a 1-to-1 slag slurry to mineral sludge, it's gonna end up getting used at only 25-to-2. So we're basically converting solids into liquids, liquids into more liquids, and then liquids back into solids. And the mineral catalyst is what we use to be able to directly sort for copper ore. Now, it is important to note, I want to say I mentioned this in a previous episode. So notice it takes 2 crushed steatite and 2 crushed crotinium to make 4 copper ore. Well, if we were to sort that ore, we would get 2 copper, 1 iron, 1 slag. 2 copper, 1 iron, 1 slag. So it is not more... Well, actually, we'd get less. Because if we look at this... Oh, would we get less? 4, 2... no. So, well, okay, well, we get less, not necessarily of copper, but we don't get the slag, right? Because this makes 1 slag, this makes 1 slag, but they also each produce an iron. So we lose out on some slag and we lose out on some iron, which, sure, okay, if you need iron, but then we can just directly ore sort the iron and then get the iron directly. Now, it is, again, it's important to note that there's kind of this balancing act we have to do here, right? Because, so we lose out on a little bit of iron, but that forces us to want to do the direct iron sorting. Well, then we lose out on the little bit of copper we get here. So it is one of those things that's important to note, right? So the 4 crushed steatite is able to produce 2 copper, 1 iron. Well, if we were to take that same crushed steatite and then the 4 crushed crotinium, that would have only made us 2 slag, 4 copper, 2 iron. Well, if we were to sort them directly for this, we'd actually get 8 copper. So effectively that 2 slag and 2 iron are just getting converted into copper. So the same number of items are coming out of the recipe, just we're getting only copper instead of some other byproducts that we might not necessarily want, which is good. So we are gaining copper from the amount of steatite and crotinium put in by converting that slag and that iron directly into copper. Now, it should be noted though that when you do, when you do this, you're not losing any copper, right? Because it's basically, in this recipe, it's, 4 crushed to 2 copper. And then in this recipe, this one, it's 4 copper to 2 crushed, right? So you just invert your ratio there. So in reality, we're gaining more copper per crushed steertite. So it is good on this end. Then of course, obviously with the metallurgy, we can increase our yield. We've already done that as best as we can. There might be 1 or 2 more processes we can go ahead and do, but for the most part, that's about where it's at. And it's fine that not all these machines are running. It's not incredibly dependent. We need more filters is what we really need, but it's not hinging on having exactly the most even amount of filters. Eventually we'll add more into the system, but there's never going to be a drain on the system. Eventually we'll hit a kind of a critical mass of filters as we make them and insert them. We almost actually have enough to run on the machines as it is, so I'm definitely not worried about it. Alright, so let's go and where'd those crystallizers go? They went somewhere. Okay, do you see the... There. I was gonna say, do you see the crystallizers? Because I don't. And so for this, it doesn't really matter where we put them. So you can put them like this, and then also take notice at some of these recipes. So for instance, if we wanted to, we can sort the mineral sludge right now and get resources from it. So if we wanted to, for instance, we could sort, say, uranium, fluoride, and thorium, which are used in nuclear power plants and all those fun things. If we want, we can get cobalt and tungsten. This is also how you are able to get manganese. It's not magnesium, it's manganese. And chrome, which are used in just higher, for instance, iron sorting and iron or not sorting, but iron smelting. So it allows us to get more iron plate, which is good. And a few other different combinations. But really, if you're doing this, and you can, if you need both iron and copper in equal amounts more, or even just in general, this could be a worthwhile solution. Gives you a little bit of extra resources. Now, it is important to note, so it is only a 40%, which I don't really like the way that this output is listed as 40% iron, 40% copper. So then, where does the other 20% go? It just disappears. Which, okay, whatever. But it's not necessarily great at defining how much you get. Like, oh, this gives you 2 iron, this gives you 2 copper. Or is it you get 40% of the time you're going to get iron, and 40% of the time you're going to get copper, and 20% of the time you're going to get nothing? So it's one of those, I don't like when mods, or really anything in the game, list it as this, because I feel like it just makes it a little bit convoluted as to what the actual output is. I don't recommend doing this unless for whatever reason you just need both iron and copper, more of it. I honestly would recommend just take the time to do the catalyst and go that route and do direct ore sorting. Now, depending on whatever scenario you find yourself, that might not necessarily be a feasible option for you, which, okay, then that's understandable. But 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say it's probably the feasible option, and honestly, I think it's the better option. If there's a better option, though, let me know, because I would always like to learn new things about a game that I highly enjoy. So we'll do that, and as you can see, it is a very fast craft. You're not going to be spending, oh, slow bar that ticks up, oh, you finally got 2. Slow bar that ticks up, you finally got 2. These 2 machines will be plenty to process all the mineral sludge we get. They are quite insanely fast. So let's go ahead and get ourselves a warehouse. Oh, well, we actually have to head back up because I forgot we used all our iron in making filters, but that's fine. We'll be able to go get more iron anyway, make more filters, and make more warehouses that we need. And so there are 3 different catalysts. So there's a crystal catalyst, and then there's a hybrid catalyst. The crystal catalyst is made from the crystal seedling, which we are already making for the splinters, I believe. And then the hybrid is just literally you take 2 of each, 2 mineral, 2 crystal, combine them together, and you get hybrid catalyst. So basically it's the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And really, they're not difficult to get, and they do use up byproducts that you're going to be getting anyway. So like the geodes, you just melt the geodes. So really, you're just turning all your byproducts into usable material, which is nice. It at least allows you to kind of go full circle with how some of the processes occur. So for our case, let's just grab a warehouse. Boop. And then let's go ahead and grab more filters, wherever those exist. Yeah, we'll go, I don't know, about 100 more maybe. Well, those are all crafting up. Let's go ahead and grab the warehouse. We'll just stack it up top, I suppose. There's no real reason to have, I don't know, super amazing output. Because it really isn't going to matter. Where's that? Cool. There. So now we have ourselves mineral catalyst, and as you can see, we're going to be producing quite a large sum, so I'm not worried about running out. So now the next portion, if anything, we're going to run out of the mineral sludge production. We might not even have enough to support these two, which is quite funny, but that will at least allow us to burn off much of the crushed stone and slag. And if we go ahead and look at the Javolite, we're already bringing that number down quite considerably since having this. We will, because right now the Javolite's the only one connected, we will go ahead and start connecting up the others, because as you can see, they are all starting to get very full. For instance, the Bobmonium is getting quite close to being full. The Stereotype, or no, this is Sapphirite. Sapphirite is actually almost full as well. In case you're wondering how I'm checking that, over here on the right hand side of the screen, you can see under what's in it. So like you see the normal operations, and you can see there's 505,000 crushed stone, there's 182,000 slag, and then the occasional fluctuation of what goes in and out. And then underneath that you can see storage 575 out of 768, meaning that's how many there is. And then, yeah. We're slowly draining those things, and they'll go into these storage units. This is definitely overkill, by the way, in terms of deep storage. You really shouldn't have this much stone and slag lying around. Obviously, these aren't full. They're just, as it comes in, it goes into the first one, transfers into the bottom one. Eventually, it trickles its way all the way down to the bottom two, where then it just gets inputted and melted down. The reason I put this many in here is because you do accumulate so much over the course of kind of the starting game. In our case, over the two days and 3 hours of actual playtime there is in this save so far, and the 82, well now 83 episodes we've done. So you do accumulate quite a lot of crushed stone and slag before you get to this process. So it is important to note that you don't necessarily need this for the long term. You'll eventually probably be able to scale this down to just a single warehouse for each. But for now, I do want the capacity to be able to drain everything out of the production area into here, just so that it gets clear and out of that area. Okay, so now that we have these mineral catalysts, we can go ahead, we can technically sort copper directly right now. If we put all three ingredients together in an ore sorting facility Mark II, we can get direct copper, but it requires an ore sorting facility Mark II. So let's go ahead and go grab everything we need for that. We do need some circuits, ironically, which require copper. The copper situation hasn't gotten worse, but it is not getting better fast enough, unfortunately. As you can see, we are getting more copper since we've switched over to the better version of refinement that we did a couple episodes ago, but it's still not perfect. We are just still not able to fully maintain the amount that we need but hopefully eventually we are able to maintain that. So let's go ahead and grab those circuits if we can find them. As for how many sorting we're gonna do, it is important to note, because we are still doing the other refining, right? So we're turning the crushed into chunks and the chunks into crystals, or yeah, and then into whatever the other tier is called. Actually, we're not doing the last tier of any of them yet, but we are at least doing the chunking and the crystalling. So we still need crushed stereotype and crushed, well, actually, crotinium is only being sorted into crotinium, or crushed crotinium is only going into sortage, it's not being refined further, but the stereotype is being refined further. So it is important to note that you have extra capacity, and although everything is ratioed out perfectly so that it uses 10 crushers, again, eventually, once we do direct ore sorting, everything will go just fine. But again, the whole conversation of ratios, you want to either do one of two things when you're doing direct ore sorting. So you can either make perfect ratio, right, with this. So have enough, where is it? For this one, have enough crushed stereotype and enough crushed crotinium to match up perfectly with however many ore sorting facilities you're doing. And by all means. But note that especially when you get into these higher ones, for instance, say you're sorting fluoride. Well, now you need chunks, javolite chunks, and you also need ferrous powder, which means you're going to need either a much bigger refinement area, if you want, again, if you want everything ratioed perfectly, assuming everything's working full bore. I don't do that because I find it not necessary. And the reason I find it not necessary is because oftentimes, oh, and I don't have a vehicle on me anymore. Awesome. Okay, well, we're gonna have to make a new one then. I often find it not improbable, but I usually don't have all my direct ore sorting facilities running. Usually it's copper will run for a while and then build up a critical mass, and then iron runs way low, and then iron, and then usually the factory kind of just plays switching between the two as to which one it needs. And I noticed that a lot in vanilla as well. Now, sure, you could increase your production of one or the other, and then eventually it would even out, but it's just, yeah, it's just not how I want to play it. So we do have to now figure out how we want to route the catalyst, and we do want to allocate 3 lanes overall, because again, there are 3 types that we're going to be using. And so now we have to decide, okay, well, where do we want to put the direct ore sorting? We can put it in this open space, or we can put it kind of over here to the side. I'm leaning over here to the side because there's not really any ore in our way, and it's pretty clear for the most part. I think for our case, I'm going to put it over here to the left side. And then what we'll do is, so there's a little bit of space, and we actually have to rework some of these pipes once we need the higher tiers, but for now it's fine, because we're only going to be working with the crushed. But basically we're going to pull out the ore we need. And we've kind of, yeah, okay, you can actually see it up here. So for instance, the sapphirite goes up here, and the stereotype goes on the next one, and so on and so forth. And so it allows us to basically pull horizontally the things we need. But also, yes, take note, these things are technically in the way, but that's kind of why we have this extra space here, is to be able to route things that we need vertically. And in the case of what we need is the chunks. We don't need, so this is, you know, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then there's tier 4 of refinement. We don't need all 6 ores to be refined to tier 6, because not all the ore sorting needs to be tier 6. Only like 2 maybe, I think, are actually needed to be tier 6. So, and again, it also depends on what ores we're getting. So eventually we will stop altogether the sorting of the ore down here. And we will no longer get the slag, and we'll no longer get all those fun little components. And what we can do is we can actually just add more crushing here, which is what I've done before. And then that just allows us to add more things upstream as well, and you can adjust your ratios according to what you need. But genuinely, you need the most crushing of all of them. Then you need a little bit of chunking, and then you need the fewer crystals. And so it just comes into, depending on how much you need, what are your factory needs, along with just, you know, a few other things that are going to determine the number of ore sorters you need. But in our case, it's 5. Well, I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to set up the area in between episodes, and then in the next episode, we'll go over the build. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Hope you guys found it a little bit educational. As always, smash that like button, turn on notifications. Well, smash the subscribe button as well and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. Leave a comment if you guys enjoyed the episode. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.